First and foremost, a good morning. Well, maybe technical good afternoon from Toronto. Certainly good morning for Nick, because in California, 3 hours behind. And
Yes.
from anywhere else you folks are watching, thank you. Appreciate the fact that you are taking time to join us this morning. And we think it's going to be a worthwhile session because we're going to go down the path we're talking about, since specifically we're talking about what's going on in Brazil and our wonderful ethical friends from Facebook. Sorry, didn't intend to, but so my name is Bashir Fancy. I'm the President CEO at Business and Technology Professional Association of Canada, which is both educational, certification, sharing of knowledge. That's who we are. And my colleague, friend, Nick Brown, he's in California and he runs Clear Purchase. And just in case you were not aware, he's the guy who built the Visa's debit system, and he knows, as I say, a thing or two about the payment system. So we're in good shape here, and we're going to give you an honest view of what we think is happening. And between Nick and myself, we do know a thing or two about payment. So, and then we'll hopefully answer your questions to try and address what are the challenges. So the issue this morning is going to be, do you want to add anything to that, Nick, in case I missed?
Yes, I think that you really haven't introduced yourself to most people very well. A lot of people know who you are. A lot of people don't, though. Bashir has been involved in payments at every level, especially in the security side of things, and going way back almost to the beginning. If you actually were to look back, he pretty much originated the entire industry's compliance, the PCI compliance. It was actually called a different name at the time, but it became PCI compliance. He's been involved in all of it. His focus has always been security within the company as well as for the payment systems themselves. I've been much more on the technical side across the board. So I'm like the super geek in the world. So it's a nice combination here.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. I let people find out things, but I really appreciate that. So we're today going to talk about, because in the last, folks who may not have or miss some of the earlier presentations that were discussions that we had with Nick, and there's a thing we do here called Fancy that, conversations that change our world, and this has become an instrumental part of that. So we've had 3 of these conversations which set this, what we're going to talk about today, very, very well. And the subject today was, of course, how the payments, how Brazil should respond to WhatsApp payments. In case people are not aware, they've gone an interesting backdoor route is probably the best way to put it. And so why don't we, Nick, let you lay what is going on in Brazil, then I'll let my 2 cents if I have to.
Okay. So basically a few months ago, Facebook, that owns WhatsApp, and WhatsApp already has 120 million users in Brazil, they promoted the idea of introducing WhatsApp payments into Brazil. And the Brazilian government immediate response was, let's hold things up a little bit until we figure out whether this is actually good for us or not. So good move on their part in doing that. WhatsApp payments is, the way that they were selling it was that it was going to be able to use credit and debit cards. So it's going to be a card wallet, basically. And Visa and MasterCard were promoting adoption in Brazil based on that. It seems like they've got past some of the hurdles in Brazil, and now it's a matter of regulations and some concerns about competition. So they're getting closer to actually launching, unless something's happened since I last looked. The conversation today, although we are talking about Brazil, it's a relevant conversation for every country. Yeah. When Facebook or WhatsApp or any other company is looking to introduce a mobile wallet. So I was in a conversation a while ago, and my immediate thought when I first heard about this was, it's a Trojan horse. Going in with credit cards is a Trojan horse for WhatsApp. And the reason that I'm saying that is that there is a much bigger story going on. And by bigger, I don't mean it's bigger so much as far as it's, there's a longer term mobile wallet war that we're in this starting stages of. I think that that's going to be happening. And the big guys are going to be Facebook and Alipay and WeChat Pay and Amazon Payments and some others. Some of these will not succeed. Some of them will. Others will come along. But over the next 5 years or so, you're going to have these massive global mobile wallets that are going to be fighting for market share. And so when I looked at Facebook going into Brazil with WhatsApp payments, I saw that as a strategic move for Facebook introducing Calibra, not Libra, the cryptocurrency, but Calibra, their mobile wallet, into Brazil as a means of being, we're the first one with our global mobile wallet in Brazil. Alipay, you've got to play catch up now, because Alipay is pushing in countries in Africa and Southeast Asia. So Facebook is starting more on this part of the globe. So that's how I saw it. Now, I may be right on that, I might be wrong on that. I just have a different time perspective.
I think you outlined it very well. And people who know me know I also used to be the global head of internal audit for Visa. So I reported to the chairman of the board. One other thing, I look at things exactly what Nick has just piled up. That Facebook and we're using Facebook as the representative of what can happen, right? Don't get into this thing just willy-nilly. So they've gone into this. There's a strategy behind it, right? And I don't know why some people don't pay attention. And Nick, we can probably use the example of M-Pesa. When M-Pesa came up in Kenya, right? The banks didn't want any role in it, nor did the government initially, right? And what was the purpose? Who are they going after? Who's Facebook going after now in South America? You start with the unbanked, right?
Yes.
That's the unbanked is a perfect place to go after. And it's funny, we use the word third world countries. The truth is we've got unbanked a massive amount in the United States. And everybody's calling everybody else third world, which is very interesting. And so and you look at it and go, hang on, maybe we need to take a step back and understand what the heck is going on. But you go into this unbanked and you get them through the mobile wallet because they can't get credit card. They don't have, a lot of these people are living hand to mouth and just as they get the paycheck, and then the guy who's earning a little bit, he's trying to transfer money to somebody in the family so they can get their groceries. So that's who they've gone after. And M-Pesa should have shown everybody, in case people are wondering where M-Pesa is in Kenya. And 20 years ago, a little more than that, is now the in thing. Like if you don't have M-Pesa, you can't do anything there. And it did not need the banks. It really did not need the banks because they were doing digital transactions with each other, right? And they could have done that, and the banks came in afterwards. One of the things that is worrying, and I'd like to hear your, views on that, is that I think in most parts, some of the banks are asleep here also, right? And that's, polite, because what has happened is that thing, and we saw some of the comments there on the LinkedIn, is no, it can't happen here and this can't happen. Are you kidding me or what? This is exactly what we've said about a lot of things can't happen, but they have happened and they will happen. Like Tofi says, it's not about is it going to happen. It is going to happen. So the question is, how are you going to deal with this, right? If you're the government, so why don't you start there? Then we'll look at the national issue there.
Yes. Well, the first thing I'm going to give the banks a little bit of shade on this, and it's not that they are. I mean, the banks really should be followers rather than leaders, because security and safety is the most important service that they provide to their customers. And so going out and trying radically new things is not what they should be doing. Having said that, they should be very aware of potential risks. So just like putting the blinkers on is not the way to go. And I'm not saying that they are putting the blinkers on, but they should be aware of the risks that are coming. And so, yes, they should be followers. M-Pesa was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I mean, talk about an absolutely terrible business model. Let's give bank accounts to people earning $2 a day. I'm sure we can make money doing that. It was the most amazingly successful business because the people that were not able to get a bank account, because quite literally the banks couldn't afford to offer them a bank account. Right. They were desperate for it and they jumped all over it. It was amazingly successful and they saw it and no one else did. The banks didn't see it, the government didn't see it. Now all the other cell phone providers are offering the same. They've built their own systems. So you've got MTN, Orange, Airtel, all of the other cell phone companies are doing the same thing now, and good for them. So it's, but these are for mostly the unbanked and underbanked are right. Generally around the world, not in the US so much, but around the world are generally not affluent enough for banks to be able to offer them accounts. And the reason for that is that the banks have a lot of overhead. They have to have branches. They have to have employees in those branches. You can't offer that to someone earning $2 a day. But a cell phone, that changes it all. And it's been proven to change it all. And it takes the brakes off for the economy as well. So those people that are at the bottom of the pyramid, they actually get an opportunity now to scramble their way up that pyramid because one of the barriers keeping them in poverty is now being removed. And that's amazing because they will become bank customers. Give them a bit of time, they will get there. So this is really good for everyone. And of course, the government and the banks in Kenya had no clue what M-Pesa was because it didn't exist at that point.
Correct.
Are they aware of it now? And other countries are like welcoming them in because they know how much of a big deal it is. So
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was my viewpoint on that. I thought it was absolutely amazing what Safaricom did.
So this is very interesting. Last September, when we landed in August, end of August, September, so I'd taken the family to basically show them where I was born and whatever. And it was a holiday to Kenya, right? On landing, the guy gave me a SIM card, and although I had my own open phone, and it was just X number of dollars, unlimited data and unlimited this, that, and the other. Of course, his first question is, do you have M-Pesa? Oh, shoot, I don't, because I don't live here now, right? And so I had to have my brother-in-law turn on, set it up, so that if we're going somewhere else and whatever you have to spend the money, I said, you do that from your phone because it's easier. The whole system is working with that, which then provides. But one of the comments that you made, I wanted to touch on, which is you mentioned the bank. I come from banking background myself, from Citibank, right? And so I look at it and go, it's interesting that you put the word security and I don't know whether you said trust, but maybe I misheard. Because if you said that, then I recommend people go look at the LinkedIn article, which is the international journalists actually have been working on for God knows how many years. And all the banks you look at as being the models had their hands dirty, and actually, literally, the only way to put it is to promoting anti-money laundering, right? With the Russian oligarchs and this one and that one, all the wrong guys, and money has been done. And we are talking about in not just billion, in trillion. And so I think things have changed. And so when either you have governments asleep and don't understand what the heck is going on, and some of them don't understand. Maybe they may not like to hear that, but that's a fact. Because you can't load up civil servant in all over the place and think that they're keeping on top if they don't keep on top. Number one. Number two, that too many of the people who are involved, even in the payment world, right? Then I know some of these people, and you know some of these people. They think the world is operating the way it did 25 and 30 years ago, and it's not. Right? It's changed drastically. The power has changed, the way we do business has changed, and they continue to plug away. That's why coronavirus and the lockdown has been very interesting, because if people don't see this as a wake-up call to say that, oops, things have changed around, how we're going to, things are going to, this will give rise to the M-Pesa type model, and what Facebook and other will probably try to do is going to be a lot more, you quite rightly point out, because you're going after the unbanked or underbanked, right?
Yes.
And there's big business. I mean, it's not a surprise that Walmart turned around and said, oh, bring me a social security check. I'll cash it for you for no fee. I mean, the CEO will tell you exactly what the impact it had. So people need to take a step back and rethink what exactly is going on. So here's the second part of the thing that I will touch. Then we'll come to the banking and the trust issue in a bit, and what the model is actually occurring. Is that if you were in Visa, MasterCard model, well, we all know that. I remember I put a document together on interchange of exactly how it works. And there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. Everybody thinks that Visa...
Even in the payment industry, people in the banking industry misunderstand a lot about it.
Correct. Everybody thinks, oh, Visa is charging all this interchange. No, that's not true. It is the two banks, or on the acquiring side, the banks actually outsourced that business and gave away a long time ago. In Canada, they still have a couple of banks have it, but in most part, everybody got out and gave it to the other parties, third-party acquirers, right? So what you have is the interchange that is shared between the acquirer and issuer, right? And so what is happening, and of course, Visa's charges for the transaction a fraction of a cent. I mean, not crazy. I mean, there are a few other charges for branding and whatever. So really, if I'm that third guy now coming and looking at all this model, I can do two ways. I can replicate that thing and say, I'm going to make money, or you do something different. And so I'm saying, heck with that. I'm going to just charge a fraction of a transaction with some cost markup. But I will cut that, because like you quite rightly mentioned in our conversation previously, is that you can do that because we're going to use the word generic Visa, MasterCard, whatever. But the cost is a hell of a lot higher because you're combining all the other stuff here. But if you're doing the transaction, how do you do a transaction? If you went to Walmart or Best Buy or anywhere, or you're buying groceries, whatever, Home Depot, anything, would they be happy if you were doing a 50-cent transaction or 1 shilling transaction you were in Kenya or pesos in South America? No. But you can do it if you're using this concept that you talked about, right? Because now the cost is a hell of a lot lower, and there's a way to tighten security around this issue in a significant manner. So let's address that.
Well, yes, there's two ways of doing this. I mean, the first thing is that the two biggest costs in the card rails come down to payment fraud, handling it, managing payment fraud prevention. Really, the biggest part of it is actually managing the fraud. You've got to have people on the phones. The second biggest one, which causes the fees to be so high, is the most of those fees go to the issuer. And the issuer is taking a risk because it's credit. And so it offsets, the fees offset the risk of giving credit to their customers.
Right.
And so the merchant is paying that. Most merchants pay 2.5% to 3%. And that's, to me, I look at that and go, it doesn't have to be that high. But it is that high for some very specific reasons. When you look at alternative systems of doing it, mobile wallets are wonderful. I mean, what is it that they've done? There's no credit involved, so you don't have to deal with that. It's a closed system, so there's no transaction fees for interoperability. And it's a closed system as well, so that it's fairly secure. I mean, everything about it is saying, hey, look, this is a faster, better, cheaper, cooler product. Shouldn't we be happy with that? And if it wasn't for the downside, which is what we really got into in the last 2 webinars, if it wasn't for the downside, then it would be an obvious next step in the process of transactions. But there's some huge downsides. That's the real problem. Now, one of the things that because you talk about another one, interoperability, the card rails work here in the US and Canada and other places in the West because transactions are high enough. And there is a 20 to 35 cent minimum fee on every transaction for a reason, and that is payment fraud. When you're talking about the unbanked and underbanked in developing countries, especially if you're really looking at the bottom of the pyramid, you're talking about people earning $2 a day. And you go and buy rice for 10 cents, you can't pay 20-cent fee on it. That's why it's still in cash. But a mobile wallet has almost no cost. It's an internal accounting transfer. That's all it is when you do a mobile wallet send of funds. They can do it for practically nothing. They are the ideal market for mobile wallets. So one of the things I'm asked is like, well, what about these, like, what should we do as a country? Have a local mobile wallet. That's a great way to go. The reason that M-Pesa was mobile money as a distinction instead is because people didn't have smartphones out to the village.
Right.
Across Latin America, you got mobile wallets all over the place because they did have smartphones out to the village when this whole thing started. So they sort of bypassed the M-Pesa model and they went straight onto a mobile wallet model. And good for them. That's exactly what they should do. But there's still this bigger threat that's out there, and that's really what this conversation is about.
Right. And by the way, for people who are listening, don't worry, we're going to come back to the Facebook and the regulatory issue, which, and there's already a question, but we're coming there because what more lay out the framework of what's happening. So what happens here, and this handles a question that was directly asked by somebody on LinkedIn the other day, or a comment where somebody thought the bank was the answer and everybody else should follow. And I thought it must have been a joke, right? Because he couldn't have been serious.
It was probably sarcasm.
Oh, maybe it was sarcasm, right? Because it can't be for real. The issue here is two, that when you look at it, for Facebook or WhatsApp to get up to 120 million users in Brazil, and for a regulator to be asleep till everybody else made the noise to say, okay, hold, tells you that they can get in to any place in the world. Where you're using only Brazil at the moment, I was personally involved in few of these launches with the regulators also. One was in Middle East, but that was done differently with the government regulators all being involved, and it was taken to the banks, and they've done a phenomenal stuff that is called Fowry, right, out of Egypt, and the World Bank was involved. So that was very well done, and that model is very much like the M-Pesa type approach. It is, it started by topping up their cell phone and then paying electric bills and paying whatever bills, and started to expand from there. So the banks wanted to get involved and did get involved. It's in South America, but I think this is where it's going. This does two things that people may not be. So this is one of the things we can address when we look at the regulators and ML is a US dollar or any currency that thinks it's now the reserve currency in the world, guess what? Got bad news for you. If this digital thing goes into the world the way it is already started, it doesn't care about currency. It's digital. $1 digital. People are trying to tie the cryptocurrency to a stable US coin and all that. And the other people, I've seen people saying, "What the heck? You know, you're going to tie that to that dollar." It's exactly what I saw in the airline industry umpteen years ago. So the question becomes now that with the digital, if you do it like what WhatsApp is doing, Apple Pay was trying to do, you got other guys got into it, and they may not have the massive interchange to protect. That's the whole problem here. It's like a big guy with a system. I equate this to, if you think back when India had zero technology, right? And they jumped to the top. How did that happen, right? They had nothing to protect. They didn't have existing customers on technology protect. They went to the best that was available, right? And some of these guys are coming out. They got nothing to protect that. They already got their base of people who are fiddling around, and we have also gone nuts in clicking likes. And if you put a story out there and 20 people don't click like on it, you feel like you lost in the world. You need to go jump out of the building. I mean, it's ridiculous, but that's exactly them. And that's why I recommend to people, if you haven't watched it, watch The Social Dilemma, because you'll find out how you're controlled. So it's very, very interesting. And they are the people talking. So it's not outsiders. So we go there now, and then we can come to the regulatory. The country doesn't have to even know what's happening, because I mean, Facebooks and the other people who are already got their customers, right, can actually allow transactions to occur all over the place.
Yes, so long as, and this is interesting, so long as you have a mobile wallet, like a mobile card wallet, like
right.
Apple Pay, where you basically have your credit or debit card attached to the account, and that's all that's there.
Right.
And that's what WhatsApp payments is supposed to be, is just
right.
that.
Right.
Then it's fine, because those are attached to the payment rails, the card rails, and they have to abide by all the regulations and compliance in order to be a part of that network. And they're also tied to local banks, because that'll be where those cards are located. Right. And so there's a lot of control that countries have, so long as it's card-based. But that's not what Facebook's doing.
Oh.
It looks like that's what they're doing with WhatsApp payments right now. But they announced Calibra when they announced Libra at the same time. But Calibra was hidden because of all the fuss with Libra. And it was, I immediately bypassed Libra and was going Calibra. That's the one that's interesting.
Right.
Because you don't have to be tied to anything. That's the whole thing. With a mobile wallet, you just have a balance. It can be, if you have a national mobile wallet, that can be regulated at a national level.
Right.
Because it's a national company dealing with just national citizens and companies. No problem at all. The moment you get an international, global mobile wallet, who's going to regulate that? How
right.
is your government going to be able to tell them to do anything? How can you even stop them from operating in your country? They don't have to have a physical presence anywhere. There's no say over Facebook. Brazil government has no say over Facebook if it's purely a mobile wallet without the cards attached. I mean,
absolutely.
It doesn't mean that they won't have it. It doesn't have to. It doesn't. I mean, I'm not talking about Facebook specifically. I'm talking about
we're talking in general.
A global mobile wallet in general.
Yeah.
Is outside of the ability of pretty much any government to do anything.
So now that's a very good point. So now, Guy's question, which is absolutely correct, and it's what we're planning to address here anyway, is that how does the regulator of the country, right, now get in the middle of all this? Because I'll give you one scenario and then we can start to address that. If you're the like of Amazon, right, everybody knows that they don't pay tax, right? It's not news to anybody. They don't. I mean, they go offshore, ask people in Ireland. Some is because of the government regulations were deliberately done to attract business. Some were because they couldn't protect it. We already know from this banking report by the independent journalists that the banks are not your frontline anti-money laundering people. They're not going to stop it. That role they've given up. Or this, what happened, and I recommend people who have not seen it, go on. We will post it on our website, but it's also, we post it on LinkedIn. So you got that. What does the regulator now do? How does the regulator, especially in Brazil, but use that as a model to try and say, hey, we're going to use this all over the place. How do they go about inserting themselves in the middle to make sure the rules? And here's the scenario I'll give you, then you can tell me what you think. If you're the like of Amazon or any other big company, because you are selling your good money, I park my money somewhere offshore, okay? Significantly, as they do now. You allow the digital transactions to occur, there's no settlement. But I give you an account offshore now, right? So you want to monetize that, whatever the dollar there was, now you're put in the bank account. I give it to you outside.
Well, let's just put it this way. You don't even know where the account is.
You're absolutely correct. So let's address that problem. You're a regulator. Now what do you do?
Yes. So there's a big difference between Amazon and Facebook. And right. This is an important one to understand, not specifically for those companies, but to realize what can be regulated and what can't. Right. Amazon's business model is to sell goods and deliver them.
Correct.
They are going to have a presence in every country.
Yes, correct.
You can regulate them as a result. Facebook doesn't. So there's nothing for the government to be able to get hold of in order to enforce any kind of regulations. There's nothing there. There's also something else to be aware of. You can't stop them. You can't stop Facebook from offering a mobile wallet. They can just start offering it to their existing Facebook and WhatsApp customers. And what are you going to do? Stop Facebook? I mean, how would you stop Facebook in your own country? You can't. I mean, first of all, you could only stop the whole thing. And secondly, if you were to, you're going to get an uprising. You're going to have hundreds of millions of people really upset with you because you've stopped Facebook, people and WhatsApp and all the others. So you really can't stop them. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can do, though. But in the longer term picture, you cannot stop them. So you do other things to limit the damage that can be caused, or even better, to limit the foothold that they can get in your country. And so, and this is one of the first things that wasn't in the previous ones, but I've already mentioned it on this, is encourage a national mobile wallet or multiple. Encourage that, because mobile wallets really offer a great service to the unbanked and the underbanked. And when the internet gets out to the village in across Africa, you're going to get the mobile money guys like M-Pesa. You're going to get them basically converting into mobile wallets. It'll be like a joint service in a way. But what I would then do as the government is interoperability. The big benefit that mobile wallets have is anyone can have an account anywhere in the world for the global mobile wallets. And what that means is that anyone can transact with anyone else instantly and really cheaply. With mobile wallets and banks and mobile money, they're all disconnected. It means that transacting with someone that has an account somewhere else is slow, expensive. If it's international, it can take weeks, if not months, to get there. And that's been a failing of the entire banking industry for a long time. And this is hopefully a wake-up call to sort of, it's time to get our act together. Because I'm a banker as well. I love the banking industry. With this report that you're talking about, it's disheartening to see that.
Sad.
Much that the banking industry has to offer. And I hate to see it abusing it. I don't want to lose the bank. There's so much value they have to offer. But it's also important to realize that there are certain customers that they can't reach. And that's where the mobile wallets and mobile money come in. And we should be encouraging those, just not on the international, global level. And if you have a national mobile wallet that's interconnected, interoperable, easily with the conventional banks and with the mobile wallets in neighboring countries, now there's no footprint or no market opportunity for the global mobile wallets to go after, because people already have an account. Why would they shift?
So this is a very good point. Here's what I would do. If I was a regulator or the government, I would take the likes of Fawry, M-Pesa, whatever, and bring them under a federal regulation in that country and actually make them legitimate, right? So in other words, they're operating already, start to recognize them. You can even promote that. Singapore, I talked about it many years ago, and they've been going down this path slowly, as South Korea certainly. What is happening here, unfortunately, there's too much power in very few hands. And so what is happening, they can also dictate what the regulations come out, what the government does, doesn't do. That's not helping anybody. So what I would turn around and say, okay, M-Pesa model, very good one. As long as the money is staying within the country, no different than what Visa does, because you got on-us transactions where they stay there, and you got international transactions where they get settled at the rate each day because there's no stop. But the regulators are able to see exactly what the heck is going on. Because if you want to do money laundering through Visa or MasterCard without those controls, yeah, you can do it very easily. All I got to do is go to a merchant and pretend that I'm returning some goods in some other country. And by the way, make no mistake, it's been done. I caught it. So long time ago, but we had then rules changed, and the government certainly came over, which was the right thing, is that I can pretend, use your card, right, up in Kenya or Tanzania or Uganda or Sudan or in Singapore, whatever it may be, where there's exchange control regulations that you're transferring money, the government wants to know what you are doing. And so I pretend that you return something. You did an airline ticket refund and here's $15,000 credit to your account, right? But now you have an account up in US that's got $15,000 credit to it, right? Which you can use up to buy something or take out cash at the ATM. What did you just do? You actually bypassed the entire country's system and transferred money, and it could be the bad guys doing it. Could be the mafia, could be all the bad people that the article on banking actually names. And could you do this? The answer is absolutely yes. Has it been done? Yes, absolutely. I won't go any further details than that because it's a problem. But these guys are adopting every single day, and they see this process and this kind of ability to do it, and they're saying, okay, we could actually do a lot more.
Oh.
So, right?
Well, with a global mobile wallet, it's easy. Money laundering is almost irrelevant because everything can be completely off the books.
Correct.
Because you don't have to, with the idea with money laundering is that you get it back into the system and you get it back in a different manner than where it was. It's been cleaned, basically. Right. With a global mobile wallet, you don't have to ever bring it back into the system at all. It's completely out of the system because you can go and buy something or spend it or transfer it still within the mobile wallet. And it still is out of the system. There's no reporting necessary.
Can
you do it as a courtesy? I would put in that kind of regulations on a global mobile wallet. But the reality is that the moment the account doesn't have your currency anymore, then they're not going to report to you.
So take that.
What can you do?
Take that, because it's a very powerful point there. We know that India and UAE made a deal to deal in the local currency. We know China has made the deal with Iran they supply them oil. They're building in Iran, I think over X number of years, $400 billion worth of ports and whatever they're building. Do they have to deal with the US currency or, for that matter, any currency? And the answer is no. make it digital. Exactly what we're talking about here. Because mobile wallet doesn't have restriction of what amount. It could be 5 cents. And it could be $500 billion.
And they don't have a restriction on currency either.
Correct. What did you just do? You have bypassed every single regulator along the way. And guess what? The US dollar will tank in 2 seconds. It will tank. It's only a matter of time now, right? Because of what the other things are developing, right?
At the point that America loses its reserve currency status, then yes.
It's not a question of is it going to happen. It's only a question of when. And that's the issue right now. It's not because...
potential to have a smooth transition, which is, I think, what they're starting to try and do, or some people are anyway.
But you need the other participants in the game to be working with you, and they're not. Because they realize, like what you told me the other day, if they went after Facebook, they'll move out of US. In fact, you don't see Facebook being a US company very long, right? One of the thoughts that you had expressed. But you're not the only one who's expressed that thought.
Well, I look at that as if the US government is really going after Facebook right now. And a lot of people can say for good reason. If Facebook were to relocate to another country, then it's like, what is the American government going to do? They have no say on it anymore. What happens locally?
Did you say U.S. government is going after Facebook, or did you say U.S. government is supporting Facebook? Which one did you say? Because I don't see them going after them.
Okay. Well, there are certainly issues. There's a lot of pressure on the government to go after Facebook, and the European governments going off have been as well. They can relocate, and all of a sudden the problems go away because it now goes into international law.
Right.
And international law doesn't have any teeth in it. It's the reality of it.
Correct. Which now means, so very good point. So really, I would turn and say you go to Facebooks and Amazon and Apple and Alipay and all those things after. But and this question is a very good one that the guy just asked him. If you create national wallets, like example, whether it's Fowries or one in South America that's already operating, M-Pesa, whoever, they could be over there. What the country-to-country deal would be to actually now provide oversight, that you would be able to see exactly what they're doing, and you create a transaction code. In other words, when you are doing exactly how Visa and MasterCard operated for a long time, which is on-us transaction. If it's a purchase is within US, the merchant is within US, the cardholder is in US, it's an internal on-us transaction. If it involves across we call it cross-border or international transaction, now you use different code, just no different than on Visa, we have the code in the front. And people may not realize when the transaction comes, we know whether there's debit, credit, international, whatever, based on the merchant codes. So you take the merchant. In order for a merchant to participate in the system, they have to have a unique number, no different than the phone number is unique, right? So you have a code, and you would turn and say, okay, these are the country's numbers, whether IEMI numbers, phone numbers, whatever, those are there. So when it's going from this device to that, it is now an international transaction because you're buying some goods from somewhere else, and that's fine. So the idea is not to stop it. The idea is to turn on, you allow them to do this, but the regulator says, okay, I want to know, like Canada has a rule, for example, if somebody puts $5,000 in your account or you transfer, the bank is supposed to report it. Or 5, 10,000, whatever it is. And I turn to people, what are you talking about? I'm going to do 2 transactions of 2,500. Now what happens? You don't see that. So it has to be more meaningful, not just put the rule for the sake of a rule there, but saying, how the heck am I going to enforce this? Now, the government of Canada has done first step by saying, okay, Interact, which is the debit system, nothing to do with Visa or whatever, was separate, set up by banks, and they in fact give it away for free in most part. If you have a banking relationship, because the transactions of fees very little. And it was my boss who actually put the whole damn thing together, a very good system, long time ago. And fabulous system. But can you imagine, you now turn around and take that and combine to say, okay, we don't want to fight this. We are going to help you to even go higher level to get recognized, and we'll tell the country and all the citizens, you're using this, we are actually with you. We're going to support this. Just like the rules of dispute resolution, where you run into a problem, you say, I didn't do this transaction, whatever. Within your own wallet, within your own system, you can do that. What if this is now dealing with another country where the merchant collected the money, didn't supply, whatever. So you need some rules. Although it's within the system, you can have a lot more control, and you can literally bring the fraud down to almost zero, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the rails that imposes and enforces the rules.
Correct.
If you're part of this, then you have to abide by the rules. Visa basically determines the rules for card transactions globally. And every bank that connects and every user agrees to those rules. It would be the same with this as well. But
Correct.
Visa and MasterCard, for the mobile wallet for the poorest people, those card rails can't reach them because the transaction amounts are too small.
Right.
That's the thing. It's like, I can build those rails. I've got the system that can do that, can reach that. But it's interoperability. It's like streamlining that between connecting the mobile wallets with conventional banks, so that you have businesses can do payroll, and someone who has a bank account can transact with someone who has a mobile wallet account or a mobile money account. And also, and this is something that you've just brought up, if you have a national mobile wallet or multiple, let's have competition in a country, but you restrict them so they can't be international, then you make, if you make the regulations in your country the same as the regulations in a neighboring country, then those mobile wallets in the neighboring country can connect easily together as well. And what it means is that the businesses and people, but mostly businesses in your country, can freely trade with businesses in neighboring countries because they know that they're under the same regulations and rules and operational rules. So they know that they don't have to jump through more hoops to be able to do international trade. And the reason that's important is because one of the big opportunities for the global mobile wallets is international B2B transactions. They can be instant on a global mobile wallet, and there's no rules at all attached to them. Whereas if you want to have some say in regulating your businesses in your country, which of course you want to do, then you want to be able to have a hold on that. And if they see an easier way to transact is to go over to Facebook's Calibra, their mobile wallet, that's the one that's behind the scenes really on WhatsApp payments, or Alipay or any of the others, if they go over to those, then it's not even going to be reported, and it can be instant transactions. So you want to be able to make international transactions, send of funds instant, including currency exchange, and make all of it fast. And that's the potential. If you're building the infrastructure, it would actually be much easier just connecting all national level mobile wallets together and mobile money together than it is to the conventional banks, because that's a whole different kettle of fish. I'm very familiar with that.
Right.
But I can connect all of them together. So have everybody connected. That's the idea. So you basically have two sets of rails that you can actually join. You've got the card rails, you've got the small amount rails, the mobile wallet, mobile money rails. And those, all of a sudden now everyone is connected on one or the other.
So, no, it's a very good point. So now, isn't the government's role, if they were forward thinking, which is not normally the case, but because they react more than they are really forward thinking. But if you were to take these countries, right, where the M-Pesas of the world, whatever, up in the Far East, there is in South America and the Middle East, you invite the regulars to get together, Canada, US, UK, Germany, EU, whatever, X number of countries, Africa, Asia, Pacific, sit down and saying, okay, this is what's happening. Everybody's going to get undermined unless we actually work with this So you run your local thing, no issue. We can turn on and have this, the clear purchase approach and saying, by the way, they can provide interoperability, right? And it can allow the cost is lower because if you're going to succeed, you want to bring every little guy into the economy, right? The guy who you don't have today contributing because he doesn't get a chance. He's got no hope or no chance. And you need to change that if you're going to change that going forward. And you turn and say, okay, these are the rules where they don't become the bureaucrats, which is what the problem has been, because then you add cost. All you're saying, you do your local thing, everybody uses clear purchase, fine, we can adopt the standards of the interoperability. But when you're trading funds, when you're going across the border, how about we allow these guys to use the ACH for the purposes of the money changing hands, okay? That type of approach. It doesn't have to be ACH, but that concept.
Yes.
Haven't you now suddenly turned on and got yourself involved as a country to say, locally, no problem? I'll give you an example. The reason I bring it up, there's not one time, but I bought software and other stuff from US and elsewhere, and I'm not the only one there, the whole world has bought. And you get the stuff. If I went into a shop here, it's $100 plus the value-added tax, whatever it is, right? In UK, it's 22%, here 13%, US has got its own. I just didn't want to go up 15 miles to go pick up the thing I said I needed urgently, so I went online. Guess what? No tax. And so they just lost a significant amount of the revenue. Countries control themselves through monetary policies. If they've got no control over monetary policies, I don't know what the heck the government does. Because then only thing you got to pay is you earn, where you take the tax out of the guy's salary. But what about the business? Because they're now trading stuff all over the place. And there's no record. It's off the books, right? So you were right, what you talked about. So the question, isn't it the best place to start now is to get the government, people forward thinkers and saying, okay, yes, get the mobile wallet providers, the people who would benefit. So you bring all the stakeholders, the guy who's using the wallet too, and saying, by the way, if we do this, am I going to mess you up? What's the best way to do it? And you come out with those rules to get in front, because we are again chasing, as always happens. And this game is going to go too, it's like, I see some of the suppliers, even people who are supplying software and whatever, they're going to be out of business because you don't need any of these people, right? In this concept, what you just identified, what I'm talking about, would you agree with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends what you're meaning by that. I mean, okay. If you're looking at the mobile wallets, it's like they're the gatekeeper to everything. You can't offer a service unless they say okay to it.
Right.
And they might say, that's rather nice, we'll do that. And now you're cut out of it. It's a matter of not giving an opportunity by offering the services to your citizens and your businesses. If they are not getting a service, then they'll find it somewhere else. They've shown how resourceful they can be in finding that. And you've said that the governments aren't very forward-looking. Well, they base decisions on what they know. We're the ones that are actually out there saying, like waving the flag and screaming from the rooftops, look, danger ahead. They weren't aware of this. I'll tell you what has impressed me though.
What?
While with this virus, while we're running around in the US with our hair on fire, I've been talking with people in Latin America and Africa, and they don't have the kind of medical infrastructure we have. So they're in a lot worse state than we are. And yet they're going, I mean, I've literally heard these conversations where it was, okay, well, this didn't work very well because they were for some countries, for the first time, give money to the poorest people, and it didn't work very well. They didn't have infrastructure. So they're saying something that absolutely blew me away. They said, next time this happens, we need to be ready. Wow. I was so impressed with that. We're still freaking out with this time. We're not thinking of next time. They are. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a lot of credit. It's like when they see there's a need for something, I've seen governments do a lot. So
depends which one you're talking about.
It always does, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's true. What you're saying is very powerful. It's true because they don't have the luxury in those countries, whether you're in Africa or South America or whatever, to take this lightly because they can be crucified very quickly because they can't keep borrowing and printing money because they don't have the same printers that you have, right? Which can keep printing and no problem. They don't have that luxury. So they go back to but there's a very powerful point you're making that they are actually able to deal with it. So the question becomes, one of the points that guys brought up, which is actually very valid, that what we're talking about, regulators and all that, how do you actually deal with this? And trade agreements is one of them.
Yes.
Problem is that World Trade Organization, thanks to somebody, it almost doesn't exist. I mean, it's decimated. But there is no reason why a country-to-country deal cannot, which looks like where we're going, the new model. Why we can't do that to turn around and say, okay, here we're going to have this agreement. This is going to be part of it. This, so we can trade, we can exchange goods and services. Because at the end of the day, remember, government has a very powerful area of getting themselves in the middle of all this, which is where you can buy goods from overseas, but guess what? They still land in customs. They still land at the ports and airports. And you can block it if they're not part of the thing you've seen here. So you can insert yourself. Where you can't is on services, where somebody's transferring money. They got no clue what's going on.
Yeah,
right?
So adding to the standardizing of regulations would be streamline the process of import and export. That would, for the physical goods, that would go a lot further, but standardizing regulations would make it a lot easier to do that anyway. Because if it's coming from one country and we have the same regulations as they do, all we need to do is verify it's got what it says it is on the label. They don't have to worry about whether it meets regulations or not, because that's already taken care of.
You need a different thinking, not the security guys for a long time. No, you can't do this and you can't do that.
Yeah.
Why? There might be fraud. No, you can't do that. Then you will be bypassed. Your role is to, how can we help you do this more safely, securely, and not screw up the country and everything else, right?
Yes. There's another part of it as well. There's a tendency for the big organizations and governments in the West to go to the governments in developing countries and say, you need to do this now, do it the way we've done it. And the reality is sometimes that's a good thing to do, and sometimes it doesn't work because the world has moved on. I mean, look at M-Pesa. No one saw that coming.
Right.
They did something completely different that no one thought of doing, and it was staggeringly successful. Would that have worked here in the US? Not really, but it worked there. It's a different environment. It's a different timeline. There were no landlines across almost the whole of Africa. Everyone got phones when you had cell phones. It wasn't feasible to do it before. So sometimes you want to ignore what's been done successfully here in the West, though think about it. And sometimes you want to adopt it. Mobile money, mobile wallets, that's brilliant. Ignore what we've done. Don't take our advice on that. Interoperability, though, that's a different story. I'd learned from our mistakes that we have earned that knowledge the hard way over 50, 60 years. That is something to really take that knowledge from us and do it safely, because the consequences of not doing it safely are devastating.
And I think we're running short of time, but I think the one of the things here is that, isn't that the reason why Facebook has involved Visa, MasterCard for Brazil, and perhaps they may use them elsewhere, but if I'm saying Visa, no, this is not where I want to be, because it's a very dangerous alliance. Because at the end of the day, It can break open, in a big way. It's Facebook needs Visa. Visa doesn't need Facebook, and there's no
Facebook. Yeah, Facebook needs Visa to get in countries. So here's the question to ask:
right.
what percentage of your population has a credit card or a debit card?
Right.
If the percentage of your population is 90%, then fine, let them in, because people like using cards. They work. If the percentage is 5%, then they're using Visa to get into your country and to get past the regulations. And the moment they're in there, okay, well, 5% use a card, and the other 95% of the population can use our mobile wallet, and now they've got in. Right. And now it's too late at that point. That was a great thing that Brazil did. First thing they did was say, no, we need to think about this first.
Yeah, stop it. And then we can look at it, which is correct. So yeah. Regulations, talking to different countries and find out how, I think it's almost a place where UN can get involved, right? In a different way, to turn on and say, and say, okay, we have a potential. So, but you need now you won't be able to get all the countries together. So you start with a small group, G7 type stuff or whatever.
Yes.
Because if they turn around and get these regulations in place, or at least talk about it, this look, work one country at a time. It may not be a bad thing, because we know a new alliances are being formed. About that, there is very, very little doubt. Yeah. The power base is changing around the world. Is not going to be, already you can see what's going on. So this is a good time to take a step back and say, look, you always contributed, and you're in good shape. Work with us, because we can all be in this together. We stop the fraud. We bring the people in the economy who haven't had a chance to play in there before. I mean, if telecom is a bloody good example of this. When you go to places like India or Africa, and a guy who's selling something little is talking on the phone, right? Because it's very cheap. It's incredibly cheap. That's not true here. And we were supposed to be making all the best devices. So they figured out a way around it, and this is going to take the same path. What you're saying, if you're not right, if
well,
you're not, go ahead.
I want to make a really big distinction, because if for those that use a credit card on WhatsApp payments, because that's what they're promoting,
right?
Those are there's a guarantee on the purchase,
yes,
because it's attached to a credit card,
right?
If for the rest of the population that just gets the mobile wallet, there's no purchase guarantee. And that's huge, because it's not an actual purchase. It's going to be a send of funds. And there's a huge distinction between a purchase and a send of funds. Right. I mean, the first thing is the purchase is two directional, merchant to customer as well as customer to merchant, whereas send of funds is one directional. It just needs to get there eventually. But the real distinction is that there is a purchase guarantee and dispute resolution that's on a credit card that is not going to be on a mobile wallet transaction. And for a lot of people that don't have access to a card, they may not understand how important that is, because if you've done everything in cash, it's always been face-to-face. You've known the person, or you can go back to the person that you did the transaction with. The moment you get to electronic, you can now buy things online or through your phone, and you get it delivered. And what if it's an empty box? What are you going to do? There needs to be a purchase guarantee for the poorest people, the people that can't get a bank account or a credit card. That has to be there, and the mobile wallets will not offer that. That's not part of their business model. They have no concept really of how complicated that is. Most people in the payment industry don't realize how complicated that is. But that's where both you and we understand this. We understand what's involved. And it's really important that be there for people that have mobile wallets, so that when they need it, they don't suddenly find out it's not there. So that's an important distinction to look at when you're looking at WhatsApp payments coming into your country. If it's just cards, fine. If you've got a big population that's that doesn't have a credit card, then they have a different intention in mind. They're not coming into your country to get 3% of the population. They're coming in to get the other 97%.
Correct. Correct. And I think that's the key. And at the highest level, and I don't think that anybody should be confused, Facebook or whoever is not working with Visa because they want to promote Visa's business. Okay, this is a step in, and each of them may be looking at the problem, right? So the thing is, if you can do that, Facebook can do that, anybody else can, and that's the whole thing. This is not how the other regulatory things work with Visa, MasterCard, whoever else, because that is an established kind of system with rules and laws and oversight and governance in place. We're talking about area of business which does not have. We identified anti-money laundering, right? Money laundering, big time. It's happening already. It'll happen a hell of a lot more. And I think when you look at the this type of situation, so the reserve currency and stuff we're working, I mean, Bitcoin was all fraudulent stuff, right? And we were chasing that for a long time.
How are you going to do anything about it?
Right. And so they've literally given up on that. You can see that. So you want to buy a house in Dubai, they were doing Bitcoin transfer from Russia. Oh, interesting. Okay. And we've seen on the dark web, people, when they do ransomware, they won't get paid. I think people don't understand.
Get paid in Bitcoin because it's not traceable.
Correct. People don't understand. These guys are telling me the value of Bitcoin has gone up. I said, correct. So why is it gone up? Why don't you look at the why? You seem to know the what all the time. How about the why? Why it's gone up is because more ransomware attacks, more people won't get paid in. You are going after supply and demand, therefore the Bitcoin price is going up. Not because it's the right thing. And do me a favor, don't call it a currency. It's a commodity. It's a commodity. It's not a currency. They call it Bitcoin currency and go, are you kidding? Digital currency. No, it's a commodity because it's trading up and down. $1, whether US, Canadian, whatever, is still equal to $1 tomorrow. The value of purchasing may change based on inflation. So I think what I will read out something that it kind of says exactly what we wanted to say. That guy put out there, which actually does make sense. Where he's going to put out three, four things, and there's a question even from one, which is basically saying we need to get regulators to get involved. Trade agreements, interoperability. So I think that is absolutely correct, because if you do that, you start to have a country to country, because a trade deal will take this into account. Interoperability, clear purchase has absolutely the solution to talk about and do that. And then you can introduce governance and all that. There's a question also from Oti. Why do you think purchase guarantee can be implemented in wallets? In Africa, I can say it is without doubt that more than 80% have not credit cards in plastic. By the way, that's a statement is 100% correct. In Africa, and even in Kenya when M-Pesa started, it was less about the credit card. And that's the confusion. People are equating all these things back to credit card. No. Facebook did not go to Visa. That confusion should be removed. Facebook has not gone to Visa because they want the credit card thing. They want to use the rails of Visa, which allow interchange and settlement of international currency. If they were doing it locally, they won't need Visa. They want to do it locally, but they want to go international, and Visa has those rails, and so does MasterCard and all that. So that's why it is. So Oti's point is 100% correct. Yeah, but it's a lot more than that. When you just go into the high level.
I think there's more than that. I think that MasterCard was arguing for them to be let in, and that was gold for them. It wasn't them just trying to on their own and think, oh, well, if these guys want it and support it, then clearly it's safe.
Correct.
So,
go ahead.
So with Othi's question, it's like, why can't they do a purchase guarantee? Purchase guarantees are massively complex, and mobile wallets have a business model that is actually fairly simple, and they are running with it because it's working. And they're going to keep on going with that until the market has been carved up. and only then will they start thinking of what's next. So, and purchase guarantees are massively complex to do, and so the hope is that by the time they're looking at what's next, then there's already international rails of dispute resolution, because that's really what payment guarantees are about.
So this is a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, one other thing, and OT, on your question about purchase guarantee, I'll tell you one thing, which it can be very dicey in that if you buy something tomorrow and you pay for it, the goods were delivered. Our role as a payment is done. The fact that you didn't get the goods to your satisfaction, or it turns out to be faulty 3 days later, the purchase guarantee cannot be for that. And so you're right. The point is, the reason why you say you don't need or don't get that guarantee today, and really you don't need it. You actually do not need it, it's correct, because there's a lot of confusion about this guarantee. Guarantee is not for the fact that you bought something and you found it defective. Visa does not get involved in that. There should be no confusion in that. It's only if a service was not provided, then Visa gets involved. Visa does not get involved if the service was inferior or whatever. In the airline industry, you bought a ticket, the airline goes belly up, you did not fly. Much more simpler to try and say, okay, here's the credit, and Visa can be holding back. But if you didn't like your experience of flying, and then didn't give you a meal and your movie wasn't working or whatever the heck happened, your flight was delayed by X number of hours, that is not Visa's problem. Now, insurance can kick in there, but so I don't think that we should confuse the guarantee, purchase guarantee. Purchase guarantee is only that you are going cross-border or whatever, and you're paying money to somebody, but your goods don't arrive.
Yeah, purchase guarantee is a promise. The dispute resolution system is the way of delivering it.
Correct. And so
you've got to have that, and that's complicated because you're talking about multiple organizations all having to talk to each other, possibly across international borders. That's what Visa sets up. They make that, it's already established, but that's got to be there. And so, yeah, anyway.
So we'll wind up only because we went 15 minutes over. My apologies. Because
just before we go, though, I have been asked by several people whether they know that you're, because I've talked with them, they know that you have started this new BIZTEK organization, and they are wondering whether you would be available for consulting or to us directly, because they recognize your huge depth of experience. So I want to pass that question on.
Thank you, Nick. I feel like a hockey player on the bench who says, okay, come out of retirement. The answer is, I do this for passion. So yes, I would definitely consider if I can help them. Yes, the answer is, this question I was asked last 2-3 days. So yeah, because there's no point this thing sitting in the head. If I can put it to use, yeah, I would do that if there was such a thing required. Absolutely. But I really appreciate, Nick, what this tells me. Just like when we started the first session, we did 3 just to deal with one part. This is a big issue. So we've drilled down, and I've met some points of what we've highlighted. I think what we'll do is we'll set up another one to drill down on some of the issues now, a trade agreements, ACH type approach to see how settlements across the world can happen, dispute mechanism that Moti has talked about and we've touched on. So there are some significant areas, because understanding one of the key things, and if you're a regulator and you want to talk to us, we're very happy to share with you. As Nick has already said, get involved, because trust me, it is moving forward, whether you like it, whether you pay attention to it, and then you will, we could do, absolutely. The bottom line is that our point was to educate people, and there's a solution already in place that we can help with, and we can use our knowledge to tell you the pitfalls to avoid, because we are global guys. We are not with blinders on. So, and Nick's already shown you that. So, Nick, fantastic. Thanks very much. We'll put this video in case you missed some important points that Nick has made that I contributed to that.
So just sort of say, at the highest level, it's important to have the conversation, to start having the conversation. This is a threat. Whether you consider it a 5% chance or a 95% chance, depending on the different predictions that I've made in the previous webinars and in the document that I wrote, just the fact that there's even a small percent chance, you've got to take this seriously.
Correct.
Conversation. There are not many people out there that have the kind of experience that Bashir and I have. There are some, just not very many. We're here though.
Right.
Come and reach out to us, start the conversation with us, make your own decisions. But that's what we're here for.
Correct.
Is to provide information and assistance if that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And when we're touching next time, I will tell people why I started PCI Standard. What was that about? Where it's gone? What should have happened? But that's a whole different topic. But I think you've touched on it. And most important thing is, that's why, by the way, these sessions are actually named fancy that conversations that change our world. That's what we're doing right now. We're having conversation, whether it's 1%, 100%, as Nick has said, do not ignore it. Have the conversation. Then when you think that, no, there's a very low risk, no issue, discard. But I would not be discarding this conversation and this topic because it's pretty serious. It's moving ahead. How and what is what we're talking about. Not the question of is it going to happen. It is happening already. So Nick, thank you very much on a wonderful Friday, where we still enjoy some sunshine. And Oti Asantasana for attending, I think is still there. Let me see. Yes, he's still there. My friend, I think you're from Kampala, but one day we'll talk about that, how I used to climb up the hills there. So thank you very much, Sana Koheri, and all the best, and stay in touch and ask questions, send it to us. We will try to address that because we don't have a problem. We may not have answer to everything in the world, but we certainly have enough information to start getting towards that solution. And we also know where to go if we don't have that information with us. So Nick, once again, thanks very much for doing this. And we will set up a session for next week to drill down, because now that it's hot and we're touched, right? So guys, we will let you know. We will have the recording of this also up and available in the next couple of hours. So if you want to look at it again, or you want to share it with your colleagues to see what we were talking about, it'll be a pleasure. And thank you for investing this time with us. I hope we made it worth it. So what he's saying is really truly inspired, and he will write down his thinking and send. Okay, yeah, we look forward to. Remember, neither Nick nor I have a problem about not invented here factor. As I used to always say, in learning you teach, in teaching you learn. And so we also are learning each day. The day I decide or Nick decides, I can certainly tell you, when I think I know it all, I'll go to the mountains and retire. And that's not happening anytime soon. So, so have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. All the very best, guys.
All right.